Just wrapped a podcast with David Feinman. He has an interesting backstory. He started a business in college with a zombie 5K run where zombies chase you around. He generated over $1 million in revenue with that. Then he started an agency, which he grew his initial client base with cold calls. He said he made 2,000 cold calls, and that basically set him up for the next 2 years. So we talked about that. We talked about what goes into growing a company, the type of hustle that you need, and then taking a long-term view. He went 2 years at his agency without a paycheck. And we also had some ideas for how he could double and triple the size of his agency. So stick around. Very interesting video you're about to watch. This is from the Alex Berman podcast, which you can also get on Spotify and iTunes. All right.
We've developed a bulletproof discovery call script that will help you close more sales than ever before, and we're giving it away for free. So inside, you'll find, one, the exact questions that have generated millions of dollars in sales for our company, Experiment 27. Two, you'll learn how we've closed deals with an average size of over 100,000. And you'll get access to the strategies that helped us get calls for our clients with companies like ABC, HBO, eBay, Netflix, and a lot more. Best of all, I'm giving this discovery call script to you for free. So check out experiment27.com/discovery, and you can download that whole questionnaire for free. Let's get on to the show.
Welcome to another episode of the podcast. Today we're talking to David Feinman. He's the CEO of a fast-growing video production company called Viral Ideas and an on-demand video editing service called Flixation based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He grew Viral Ideas to 200 clients in 3 years. We'll talk about that. He also started his first company at 16 in high school. He also started the Zombie Run, which I thought was a video game until I did some research. And it turns out it's actually a live event. We'll talk about that. And it generated $1.4 million in revenue in 9 months using Facebook advertising. So welcome to the podcast, David. Awesome to have you.
Thanks so much for having me, Alex. I'm excited to be here with everyone today.
Dude, I was so pumped because when I heard Zombie Run, if you search that, like one of the first things that comes up is this iPhone game. And I was so ready to jump into this game and play it for like 2 hours.
Well, hopefully you went down that rabbit hole and didn't get eaten.
I didn't even download the game. I found out that it was a 5K right before. I would have had like a 2 hour, like it would have been a great time. I think so.
Yeah, of course. Running from zombies, not getting eaten. I think that would have been good for your health.
What was the Zombie Run? How did that kind of come together? And then what was that path for 1.4? Because this is something I haven't heard a lot about. It was 5Ks. And was it profitable? Like, how did that kind of happen?
Yeah, so I'll kind of explain the backstory. It started with actually a friend of mine that I knew from elementary school named Andrew. And we essentially had this concept in high school. And our concept was you always run faster when you're chased. So the two of us went to like a haunted house, right? You know, where like the guys chase after you with the chainsaws. And the two of us were also very early on marathon runners. So I had run my first marathon when I was 16. He had also done the same thing. And, you know, we found this like intersection. We're like, hey, like, what if we just like turned a race, a 5K course into this thematic thing where people are like being chased by zombies? So we pitched the whole idea to actually a couple haunted houses when we were in high school, and ended up getting shut down by every single one. They thought we were like a liability. You know, I think we were like 17 years old, right? So like, no one wanted to give like 17-year-olds, you know, a bunch of people with chainsaws to be in charge of. Didn't sound like a good recipe for success. But what ended up happening is, you know, we got out of high school, you know, got into college, and you know, we revisited the idea and started the actual concept in urban cities. So we would just take a normal city street, you know, bring in all this. You know, we basically had a Hollywood set inside a tractor trailer. We'd roll the whole thing out over a 5K course. And we took the concept of like an ordinarily boring 5K and turns it into basically a Hollywood set. So it's kind of like a Disney. I look at it like a Disney ride, right? Like a Disney ride, you kind of like go around in circles, but they have a whole story on top of it. So same thing for a 5K. You know, ordinarily like you're just running, but this time you're running from zombies. The whole concept was, you know, run with a flag football belt around your waist, take one off, you get captured. So we had about 35,000 people do it around the country, and it's a great event. Had a lot of fun. A lot of people got inspired to do fitness from it. So it wasn't your typical runner.
Were you organizing? So all of those events, were those organized by you, or are those like, how did that happen? That seems like a lot of events to be going on at once.
We had them spaced out, right, over 16 different dates. And then we had like a whole team that did all the organization and stuff like that.
How did you validate that before you went for the 16 at once? It required what? Did it cost any money to put this together? I'm just wondering, like, how'd you make it happen at 19?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what we relied on was pre-revenue, because a lot of people just buy tickets to the event before it happened. So like, so we basically pre-sold the whole thing. We'd basically launch in every city. We'd launch with a big splash. We'd launch with like a huge Facebook ad with a video. We made like zombie films after every race. This was like 2012. We were running Facebook ads. It was cheap, really cheap. I wish it was still this cheap, now that I'm running this business. But it's a little more expensive. Still cheap now. But we would just run Facebook ads. Like there was no real like data. The data metrics then weren't great. We had like Google attribution rigged up, and like we just noticed everything would come in through Facebook, like all the discovery. So we would just blast out Facebook ads and revenue would come back.
Why don't you do that anymore?
We were both in college at the time, and we just like didn't want to run a business in college anymore. So, we were like, hey, let's just sell.
How'd you sell?
It was actually surprisingly easy. Like our goal with it was just to kind of sell it and put it in someone else's hands. It wasn't necessarily to sell it at the best price. So we had like a different objective for it. But we just called everyone in the industry. We asked who wanted it, and a couple of people got back to us.
You called everyone in the industry. So were those just cold calls? What did those conversations look like?
I was like, hey guys, like, we have this race, it does this much in revenue a month. We have all these customers, if you go back next year, we think you could do this much. Would you guys be interested in buying? Almost every single one of them was like overwhelmingly interested in talking to us. And one just happened to be interested in buying.
That should be a course.
At the end of the day, like we had something that was like uniquely valuable to the sellers, right? So like, or to the buyers rather. We were just like, we were just set like, I honestly, so like I was having this conversation with Zach, who's my business partner earlier today. We're like, what is more valuable, a good product or who you know? And like me and him go back and forth because I'm more on the side of, you want to have a nice healthy balance between who you know and a good product. But also if you have a good product, like Apple doesn't know you, right? Like, and everyone buy, like, there's a lot of people that buy Apple computers and iPhones and, all that stuff. So like, I felt like the same thing kind of happened with the zombie run. People in the industry knew who we were. We were one of like the largest events of its type at the time. So like they took our call. It was like at the time it was the rough equivalent of like it was a small industry. Like don't think that I'm like trying to overblow this, but like it would be like the person that was running. I don't want to put it up here, but like the person running Samsung calling the person running Apple. Like it's a tiny industry, like very tiny, and people are willing to chat with each other. So it's like fundamentally like it wasn't that hard.
So we have a Shopify apps company and we're listing it on all those sites right now. And I'm thinking we just should call the other, because there are a bunch of players in the Shopify apps space same way. Who knows? It's such an interesting strategy because my first gut feeling was list the business on the business sales sites.
Yeah. And actually after this call, like we'll talk offline. I have someone I can introduce you to for that. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of it, right? Like you have to find your market for your product. I think that's with anything. When we started selling Flixation, it was almost like the same thing. I actually found it harder to sell viral ideas services and Flixation product when we first started than selling the actual entire company.
It's still harder because it's your choice, right? Like I've done a lot of work in the agency space, and what you're selling it's way tougher than because what you had before was a differentiated product, and you could run the viral videos to that. But right now you're selling to help other people scale. It's not negative value, but it's totally different. Like if you just made the viral videos for whatever company you invented next, there'd be so much more value for you to grab than doing it as an agency.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, we have the agency side and we have the product side. So it's like we find people are more sticky with the product side than the agency. Like Flixation services for editing just tucks right in to what people are doing. So, for us, that's become a better product sale than anything else.
Is there a reason why you went agency versus doing another product, doing another event thing? Because like there are huge event companies too. There's one out in London that does like real-time Star Wars, and they're huge also. So I mean, there's many ways you could have hit this over and over again.
For me, so if we back up, like it was my junior year of college when we sold the company, and we ended up selling it and went back to school. I told myself like, hey, I'm not going to start another company. I'm just going to enjoy the rest of my college and just party and be a normal college kid. And I ended up stumbling upon this opportunity my senior year. So that's actually like how Viral got started. So it was basically Zach worked at Zombie Run, and he was like, hey man, like we haven't traveled in months. We used to be on the road for Zombie Run. Like, I was on the road every week, just in a different. He's like, I just got to go somewhere. I'm like, okay, me too. It's like, let's go to San Fran. So we flew out there. We met a few people, and I told them the story about like what we did, and they're like, hey, can you do this for my startup? I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And that's how Viral launched. It was just like Zach and I consulting on a few companies. now we're here like almost 5 years later, and we have like just kind of grow out of control. It's been like a happy viral was basically like a happy little accident. There was like, I like to tell people, like, there was almost, in starting the company, there was almost no thought put into it. It's just kind of like, we're going to do this thing. Like, we know the market needs what we're doing, and we did it. And, now we have a product. So like, we're really excited about that too.
It's interesting because that sounds like the exact same process as the zombie run too. You're just like, oh, this would be cool. And then you just make it happen.
I do a lot of it. Like, business wise, I don't have anything cooking right now, but personal wise, I do a lot of that. Like, I'm doing my first half Ironman this weekend. And it's something I just signed up for. I just like watched an Iron Man video, and I was like, this looks really awesome. And like, I feel like training for this will make me a better person. So I'm going to sign up for a half Ironman and a full Ironman. So I do like a lot of that stuff.
Well, do you feel like there's not a lot of that? I'm that way too. Like, I'll just do whatever. Like, I'm learning how to cook right now. I'm pretending like I'm going to get on Chopped. So I'm trying to just drill like the TV show Chopped.
I don't think there's a lot. Like, I genuinely don't think there's a lot of it. And I think it's for this reason. I think people in general like to stay in their like little safety zone, right? Like, or they think they can't do something. Like, for example, like, let's say you didn't plan to go down the shore this weekend, or you didn't plan to like go to Florida. What's stopping you from just like booking a ticket and going? Or like, you didn't plan to do like a 5K this weekend or a 6-mile run. It's not going to kill you like to go do that. It's not going to kill you to like start a race or to start a company. So I think most people just don't want to take that first step. Mostly, I think, because of fear and discomfort that's caused by it. So I think most people don't do a lot of this stuff for that reason. And I think it stops them from progressing in a lot of ways.
You've heard that it's important to test your cold email subject lines to get an 80% open rate. And we've been able to achieve that pretty consistently for our clients selling into the top companies, billion-dollar brands. So how do we do that? The trick is to test a new subject line every 10 emails. The hardest part for us was coming up with these subject lines. But lucky for you, we have 50 plus subject lines in a Google Doc that you can test with your cold email campaigns. And best part, you can have that for free. To get this list of 50 plus email subject lines, go over to experiment27.com/subject. Again, that's experiment27.com/subject. What have you found is the best way to get over that? You might have to think back. It's like, how do you avoid that hesitation when trying new things?
Don't list off the reasons why it could go wrong, because a lot of them are out of your control. Like, for example, there might be thunderstorms at the race I'm doing this Sunday. Like, the worst that's going to happen is I'll get struck by lightning, which is highly unlikely, right? It's more likely because I'm outside on a metal bike, but I think it's less likely than, getting eaten by a shark or something. So that's number one. Like, you can't look at the stuff you can't control. And at the end of the day, like, if it's going to add value to your life, why wouldn't you do it? Other than the fact that, like, for me, maybe it's like it's out of laziness, or it's like I just don't want to. Like, so that's why I think people don't live up to their full potential. Like, I was listening to, there's this guy David Goggins. I don't know if you've ever heard his name, but he's pretty like well known in the ultra endurance space. He's an ex-Navy SEAL. He moved in with Jesse Itzler. So his whole thing is, once you think you're done, you still have like 60% left in your tank. So I think that applies to a lot of things. I think that applies to especially endurance sports. I love endurance sports. Like, when you think, there comes a point in any long race over probably 13 or 14 miles that you think you're done. You're like, my body cannot take this anymore. And you generally, like, if you just keep going, you'll finish. Same thing with starting a company. Like, when we started with Viral Ideas, we started with $250 and it took a paycheck for 2.5 years. Like, when you think you're done with that, like, you could still keep going. And when you think you're like done living like a frugal lifestyle for like 2.5 years straight, you can still do it. Like, you could still withstand it and still take the discomfort. It's just your mind telling you can't for whatever reason. So that's why a lot of people they just shy away from that downside discomfort that might come with something, but they're not moving towards the upside comfort that could come with just doing more.
Yeah, I read that whole book. Yeah. Training with a Navy SEAL, or living with a Navy SEAL.
When we first started the company, I made something like 2,000 cold calls. I think it was something around there. I really got to deeply understand the customers that we wanted. And what I learned is, or what I knew is that this stuff works because I had done it, at a decent level of scale. But what I also knew was that companies weren't doing it yet. And I think the reason why was just because they didn't understand it. For Viral, I've kind of been sitting around for the past couple of years waiting for, people's understanding of something that works really, really well to catch up with what we're doing. And thankfully it did. So, now we're kind of like, I think one of the key stats that kind of drove us was 80% of the world's internet traffic would be video by 2020. It's 2019 now. So, a lot of people are starting to catch up to the idea that, maybe they should, do something with video in their business. So, it took, time for that to happen. So I think that's where the patience with it came from, even though it took, a little bit to pop, it became worth it.
So Viral Ideas was 2 years in the making. What kept you going that whole time? Because the other success seemed so quick, right? So it seems like there were a couple things you could have done. You could have either written it off and thought all success was that quick, and then just like kept going for the quick success over and over again. Or I guess you could have done what you did, which is for some reason you had a lot of patience on this Viral Ideas idea.
Luckily, philosophically, like I'm a subscriber of the Church of Warren Buffett. So, a lot of my philosophies are like very long-term thinking based. Just because I happen to have like a short-term pop doesn't mean that it's going to happen again. I think while that one was a sprint, a lot of my stuff is more marathon endurance based. So, and I've always kind of been like that. So I'm okay waiting.
What's the process you take clients through? So like what actually creates the viral content in terms of what questions are you asking? Like how does it kind of come together?
Sure. So I think a lot of it comes from our process really is to just go underneath the company and figure out why they're doing what they're doing. And a lot of our questions, like, so we set up a lot of our videos. It's like interview styles with the actual people and employees that we're doing videos for. We'll do those interviews, and a lot of what it'll be just authentic statements from companies and their employees. So we'll get what we need out of it, and it'll end up being just a far richer piece of content because we're able to really just take a deep dive with companies. The whole like Simon Sinek thing, start with why, is something we've taken really to heart with videos. And when videos show off their strong sense of why and purpose, that's a lot of times when they'll go viral. Also, stupid stuff goes viral all the time. Like, videos of like an Empire penguin, like trying to kidnap, another Empire penguin's baby, I'm sure is like got like 25 million views on YouTube. We definitely don't, I wouldn't say we specialize in large scale viral videos. Our real skill is, identifying a niche for a particular client or customer and then building a video around that specific niche and helping them, helping that video become part of a broader ad strategy.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because there were a lot of these guys. Like I saw the one you were doing. Was it the autism prom that you did?
Yeah, that was a fun nonprofit one.
Yeah, I don't know if I saw the right one. It looked almost like a news thing. Maybe they were using your footage, but it looked like news coverage.
Could have been someone that used our footage.
Yeah, so it just looked really cool. Okay, so when you were starting the business, and we'll wrap this up in 1 second. When you were starting the business, you said you were doing hundreds of cold calls. What did that look like? And then what were the results of that?
What did it look like was basically me calling up companies, giving them a brief summary of what we're doing, trying to get them like interested, and then getting to them the next step, which was just me going out and meeting with them. So I basically would call small and, I would say mostly small businesses, because small businesses under 500 employees. So we would call small businesses and, just let them know what we were doing, let them know we're kind of new to the area. We kept it all, we tried to keep it all local, Philadelphia area at first. And it ended up resulting in about 40 clients at first. I've retired most of my cold calling hat graciously. And now most of the time, most of our stuff comes in through advertising, our own videos, referrals, stuff like that. So now we switched from a brute force to more of like a marketing strategy. It's more replicatable. But I would say, from in the beginning, we didn't have money to do any of that. So, we would do some of our own videos and some small stuff, but we barely had enough money to invest in we didn't have much money to invest in ourselves. So a lot of what we did was we put money back into the clients we had, and we would just brute force call, show them the work. And now we have tons of content out there. If you start Googling some of our content, you'll just spend hours and hours on it. There's tons of stuff out there. So
I love the idea though that you can jumpstart that. So like how many calls would you say you made?
Probably 2,000.
Okay. So 2,000 calls basically set you up for the next 3 years of agency life with those referrals and everything.
Yeah, referrals, and now we can just get business off of running ads and lead gen and stuff like that.
Is that something you can spin up anytime? So if you did another 2,000 calls, could you double the size of your business 2 years from now?
Maybe. It's a good question. I couldn't see why not, right? Like I theoretically, if I started calling tomorrow, I could do it. I mean, I have a lot less free time now, for me to sit there and I didn't have anything to do. I was just sit there and dial the phone all day.
No, for sure. And it's not like you even might not even want it. It really is. That would really be long game. I just think it's so interesting, right? Because you decided to stop at 2,000 calls, your business is at a certain level. But had you kept going, maybe make 20,000 calls. I don't know. I just think that's really cool as a strategy because you could implement that anytime. And it's like long-term view, you wouldn't really see the full effect of you making 20,000 cold calls for another 2 years.
I think the same thing happens with advertising too. When we start advertising, we probably started advertising about in our second year. We started really advertising. And I would say every time we advertise the business, every year in business, the returns of the advertising compound. More people know us, more people have done business with us. K factor, so to speak, kicks in. So there becomes like a multiple on what that original dollar for dollar ROI is. One customer that's really happy can pay us over and over again, not just through their own projects, but through people that they talk with. And that company might have come in through advertisement. The more companies that come in that we make really happy and do a great service for, the more we get down the road. So that's why we've always looked at it. It's like we never look singular or focused. If we're doing one small project today, that's like our time to shine and advertise for the next one.
Yeah, for sure. All right, David, where's the best place for people to check you out online?
On the business side, so we have the two sides of our business. We have Flixation.co is our on-demand video editing company. ViralIdeaMarketing.com is our production side. And then anyone that wants to reach out to me personally, I'm pretty easy to find on either LinkedIn or Instagram if you just look at my name.